Hello and welcome back, fellow followers, and hopefully potential followers of our channel known as Perspectives. I'm Martina.
I'm Lyzeth.
And welcome to our channel, Perspectives. So, if you watched the previous video, you know Lyzeth and I have been away for a little while just because of holidays and catching up on work and all that type of stuff. And so we are doing a few recap videos. So the first video we focused on the inauguration. And the impeachment and the reason behind that impeachment. So please check out that video as well. And so this is really like a part 2 to this video to just still talk about current events and what's going on. So we're going to spend a little time talking about the vaccines and this horrible storm that swept across a lot of the country and really how it's really hit Texas and a little bit of what's going on there. But first, vaccines. I don't know.
So I guess let's start and sort of saying like we know that there's 2 vaccines at the moment out there being used. And we know that a lot of our frontline workers, essential workers are getting it. And at least here in Illinois, if you're 65 or older, you are eligible to receive the vaccine at that moment. I don't know when the next phase will be. But I know it's come with mixed reviews as to people wanting to get it. The distribution of it has also been a little, I would say maybe chaotic because of the amount of vaccines that are available or are not available to those that are eligible. So I think there's a lot of opinions and thoughts around the vaccine. I know Martina and I have talked about even our own kind of views around the vaccine, and I don't know if we'll get into that because it's, but I think there's also a lot of especially within the Black community. Like I know you, Martina, talked about the mistrust within the medical community, and I think even within our brown Latinx community, there's also that mistrust. I think we can maybe talk a little bit about that, or
yeah, that's a good place. So you're so smart.
I try sometimes.
You're just so great. So, Lisette mentioned, there's a lot of historical mistrust with Black Americans here in the United States when it comes to just medicine and science in general. And that's given because a lot of things that have happened to advance science and medicine has often been at the downfall of Black people. I mean, Henrietta Lacks, Tuskegee, even considered the father of modern gynecology, did his experiments on a Black woman. And people will say this happened years ago, but it's still, there hasn't been much recognition around some of these things. I think because the vaccine is out now, it's really forcing corporations and organizations and medical associations just across the country and across the world really to confront a lot of these misgivings that Black Americans have when it comes to just going into getting a vaccination. I can speak about my father, who's 70 years old, and he may go to the doctor like he may not. It's just one of those sort of things. And I think it's a lot because it's well, I'll be fine. I can take care of myself and do this at home. And, and sometimes it can be a hindrance as, with my dad who's 70 and has a lot of different medical conditions. He does need to see a doctor on the regular, which it's like watching paint dry to get him to go. But eventually he does end up going. But that in itself and just really has led to just a lot of African Americans, or I should say Black Americans, their feelings around this vaccination. And I think, so to speak, I really don't know the statistics on this. I don't know if you do, but I don't know what percentage of African Americans or even people of color that's been vaccinated at this point. I don't know what
Mm,
that looks like. But I feel very true to my heart. It's probably not as many people of color that have been vaccinated compared to white Americans.
yeah.
I know when they were doing the clinical trial because my roommate actually took place. She actually went through the clinical trial. I don't know if it was for which of the companies, but she went through a trial. And so she's now fully vaccinated as well. But the one thing that we were hearing, just even in my day to day work at my job, is that we can't find people of color to go through the trials. So it's almost
Mm,
like, how effective are these vaccines going to be to people of color? Because we all know everybody's makeup is different. Um, how effective these trials, or how effective the antidote is going to be to people of color just in general. And so also that also goes back to that historical mistrust of just like,
mhm,
we ain't been a part of any clinical trial. We don't want what you trying to issue out. Don't come to our community. And I know I have many associates and friends that I know that are across the science and medical industry. And of course, they are pro-vaccine, because what I've heard from my friends who are nurses or physicians, frontline staffs, is that, and their reason for getting the vaccine is that they have seen so much happen over this last year of people who have died and families not being able to see their loved ones, and the double triple shifts, the just the wearing the mask and the imprints on your face all day long. They have
mhm,
seen all of this and they're like, nothing could be worse. Like, we need something. We
yeah.
need a vaccine. Even if this, because we've been hearing too, like, we this may be something akin to a flu shot. We may have to end up getting a COVID vaccine every year, similar to the flu shot. Um, but these are still things that we don't know as yet. But often, I have respect for my friends who have really, that this has been a long journey for them. And they're really trying to see a light at the end of the tunnel. So they are welcoming this vaccine. I know friends of mine that have posted on their Instagram or have spoken about it on panels about the vaccine. They are some of the first people of color that they're getting the vaccine, and they're doing it so that other people of color can see, like, hey, I'm brown like you, I'm black like you, I'm getting the vaccine. I don't know what's happening. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm hoping for the best, but I'm just putting myself out there and just got to see what's happened. And I know that's been at least some of my hesitation with vaccines. And I'll just go ahead and say, I'm not anti-vaxxer by any means. I'm from Mississippi, and we may be number one in racism, I should say, but we are like number one in vaccinations. So growing up, I've got all of my childhood vaccinations. Um, and so I'm a firm believer of getting a flu shot. I really am. But I will say, I'm for myself, like, I'm not even eligible now because, as Lyzeth mentioned, you have to be a certain age, as in most states. So here in Illinois, it's 65 and older. So I'm not even eligible. I'm not even close to being eligible for that. And we don't know when the other tier for the more general population is going to become available, maybe over the next month, maybe over the next 2 months. Um, but I will say I'm one that's kind of observing. Like, I'm observing right now, waiting to see what happened. I pray to God nothing happens, because I don't want it to fail, because we
Yeah.
need something. We really do. We need something,
Yes.
because whether this is something we have to do every year, every 2 years, or if it's a one-time thing, I know we're still waiting to see, but we do need something. Um, and I know my friends that, as I mentioned, that are big proponents of the vaccine, is like, they didn't just create this vaccine out of nowhere. They actually had started working on this vaccine for a previous outbreak that happened. So it's not like, people's like, oh, they created too
Right.
fast. They had started looking into it before, but now, of course, COVID happened, and they were
Mhm.
like, hey, we started doing this research and trying to create a vaccine for this. Let's see if we can modify that to work for COVID. And so for me, it's just a lot of unknowns. And since I'm fortunate and blessed, I don't have to leave my house really nowadays, unless I
Yeah.
choose to. I'm
Mhm.
fortunate enough to work from home. you know, I'm fortunate enough to like even have groceries delivered if I choose to do that.
Yeah.
So all this to say, I don't have to be at a frontline staff job. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a healthcare worker in that sense, where they're seeing this every day and have to confront the horrible things happening because of
Yeah.
COVID. Um, so I personally don't see myself needing the vaccine as of right now. Like I'm okay. I'm just staying home. When I go out, wear my mask. I'm cool. So like I said, I'm just observing. I know, Lisette, you're doing something a little similar. Just observing what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely have that hesitation that you talked about, and I think it just stems because of the unknown. There's just so much unknown with the vaccine. I feel like my parents got the vaccine, and I'm grateful for it because I mean they are older, and you know they will benefit from the extra protection now because that's always been the main concern for me. But it's also made me think about, like, I've seen them, you know, go through the first dose, they'll get their second dose uh, within the next few weeks and stuff. But it does make me think, like, okay, like they seem okay, like they're doing well. And I'm sort of just like watching, even if I wanted to, I couldn't get the vaccine, as Martina mentioned. We don't fall in that category quite yet. So who knows when that'll open up. Uh, but definitely in that, like, watching and seeing, I think there's benefits to, you know, my household being vaccinated. You kind of create your vaccinated bubble uh in that sense, and doing that. But I think, you know, going back to sort of the mistrust within the medical community, um I think for a lot of people of color, because there is a lot of systemic and structural racism within the medical, you know, community, within the medical system, and doctors, and understanding that, you know, sometimes, you know, people of color aren't believed for their level of pain, or they're, you know, misdiagnosed or mistreated um for an ailment, or, you know, being told it's in your head, like everything's fine, and they're not taken serious. I think there's a lot of that mistrust that, you know, white supremacy has created, and then sort of, you know, and that system has to be, it needs to be addressed. I think that there isn't a lot of that addressing of it, even within the whole vaccine rollout, and talking about, like, hey, we understand and we hear the mistrust, but here's why it differs. And it's not about having that token black person, that token, you know, Spanish speaking doctor that is, you know, talking out there and saying, like, oh, like, no, like, let's have a real conversation and let's address it. But let's talk about, what are you going to do different? Like, what are you changing? Knowing that a lot of, maybe 50% of the reason why people aren't, you know, people of color aren't getting the vaccine, are really seeking out to get the vaccine, is because there's a mistrust, not just historically, but even presently.
Mhm.
Like, you know, like, I think it's not just, but like, let's talk about it, and what are you going to do to change that? What are you going to do to make sure that people's concerns aren't being dismissed? Because, you know, medicine as it stands right now in the United States isn't culturally, you know, competent, is not culturally sensitive, it's not like understanding. And there's this whole thing of, like, you know, it's not taking all that into consideration. I think that also has played in, or plays into, the fact that people aren't super excited of the vaccine, that they're mistrusting it. And, you know, it goes back also, you know, trust into your government. um you know, I think about, like, the undocumented population, you know, and that sort of mistrust of the government, and, you know, and getting it, and I don't, like, I don't even know what the, like, are people asking for documented status or not? Like, I don't know any of that information. Like, is that something that's being talked about, and how are you even building trust within that community,
Mhm.
and understanding that there's a larger mistrust of, just not just the medical community, but, like, is my status going to come into play? Like, you know, there's that uh that fear, like, you come in for something that you need and is going to be the benefit for yourself, your household, community. And there's that fear of like, hey, I know I may be taking in and I won't see my family again because I, don't have I'm undocumented. So I think there's just a lot of things that I don't think have been addressed, or haven't been spoken out in a sort of more public way, in a large scale way. I think I've seen a lot of like community conversations and like vaccine town halls, but none of it really kind of talks about not just the historical aspect of the mistrust, but even the present day aspect of it. And like, what are we doing? What is the medical community doing to change that? Like, what are you going to commit to doing to make it better, to sort of improve on it? And that's I think the piece that's missing in these whole like conversations that I've recently seen kind of happen around the vaccine.
And I think too, again, like even though the patent for this whatever vaccine is based off previous work that they've done, scientists and whatnot to get the vaccine, I think I mean one thing people is like it is happening really fast,
Mm-hmm.
and it does make me think, oh goodness, like where are we going to be this time next year? I feel like
Yeah.
we're going to be wearing masks. I hope I'm wrong,
Well,
but I think
yeah.
I feel like we still are next year because what the goal in the United States, I don't even know the timeline of when they're trying to have people, like when are we trying to have everyone vaccinated? I mean, because we only need herd immunity, which is 70%. So I don't think we're even nowhere close to that. But
Mm-mm.
I'm just wondering, like, what is the probability people, especially like in the communities that we normally work with,
Yeah.
like what is coverage going to look like? Like what is that? Like what is that even going to look like, and what is it even going to mean? Because like you said, in the undocumented population, girl, that I just forgot about that. I don't know how. I have like we got a whole group of people out here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think I feel like are they even a part of these different tiers and rollout plans?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's the thing, like I haven't quite paid attention to some of these town halls like completely and heard what the the notion is. I'm gonna go back and do some research and find out around like what that conversation piece is. But it's not even if they are part of it, like even if they are included in sort of the tiers and everything, there's still that mistrust. I would think there's still maybe that mistrust around even showing up, like especially if it's in a place that you've never been to. Like I think there's definitely like community organizations like in healthcare centers that definitely work a lot with the undocumented population that I think have built that trust and understanding. But what about those that don't have that kind of support and don't have that trusted health center, that trusted community organization, or individuals that they know that they'll feel safe going to get that, the vaccine, and things like that. So I think there's just that's something that I definitely like. I'll say right now, like I don't know much about, but I'm definitely going to go back and do some research around that, or just for my own kind of knowledge to just be able to say like, okay, like are they part of the conversation? Are they being included? Like what's going on around here?
I mean, I'm gonna do the same because I am fascinated. Because oftentimes, I know the undocumented population not even accounted for, and even if they are, like you said, people are afraid. They don't know what happens if I show up to a clinic, you know, even trying to get the vaccine. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like what's gonna happen to me, and I that's so important. I just have not, like you said, I either have not heard it or have not paid attention close
Yeah.
enough. But I hope it is someone is trying to figure that out because we can't forget about that population of
Mhm.
people that are a part of this country.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And a lot of them are those essential workers.
right, the essential
Um,
workings. Like, so it needs to be hashed out or figured out. That's such a good point. I don't know. I just feel like there's so much is like stay tuned. Because
yeah.
I know
No,
it's like we're probably going to talk about the vaccination just throughout.
yeah, I definitely think it's going to be a topic that you and I discuss throughout the next few months, because um, as much as the rollout is happening, it is happening at a slower pace, and to your point, like I have no idea what the timeline is to sort of get us to that herd immunity. I remember, I think I heard someone say that, Biden, or read that Biden had said like 300 million people by July. And then somewhere else I read like he wanted all Americans vaccinated by July. And I'm like, I don't even, how, and like, what does that plan look like? I mean, and that's what my question is, like, where like, is the plan out there and I have missed it and I just haven't seen it? Like, where is, the timeline? Like, show me a timeline. Like, you and I worked with an organization that was all about timelines, and
Oh
like,
yeah.
I was like, I need that. Like, that's what I need for this vaccine.
We
Like, tell
do.
me where. Okay, show me when we started. Tell me where we're at and where we're going, or at least like a tentative plan as to where we're at, and and being honest about it. And I think that's, again, I think it goes back. I think there's a lack of transparency a lot of the time,
Mhm.
and I think there has to be more transparency at this moment with the vaccine, with getting. I mean, unfortunately, the last administration made this whole pandemic so political that, even wearing a mask, kind of either makes you a patriot or doesn't make you a patriot. Like,
So stupid.
and it's like, wow, like that's where we're at as a country. So it doesn't surprise me that there's so much, conspiracy theories. There's so much mistrust around the vaccine, not just from a like cultural and stigmatizing viewpoint from Black and Brown communities, but just from like a political kind of ramifications of it all. Like, there's people that don't think the pandemic is real, so they're not gonna they don't
Until something happens. Mm.
so they're like, the vaccine is all a hoax. It's and I've heard that it's gonna track you, and like, and it's like, you are already being tracked by your phone. If you have a smartphone or any, like, they're tracking you. Like,
Tracking.
I'm like, you can't escape it. Like, so, like, it's just, there's just so many things. And I think the more transparent the administration can be, the more transparent the medical community can be around it, and just really making sure that they're lifting up the right voices, and they're not just being those, like I said, those token voices that come out when they
Same
during
old.
this time. And it's like, no, like, let's make it transparent. Let's talk about it. Let's make sure that we're addressing what happened in the past, and let's address that it still exists. Like, let's not pretend that the medical community treats people of color completely 100% correctly all the time, and is not. Like, no, like, there's there's times where I've been dismissed when I go to the doctor, and and I'm telling them, like, this is how I feel, like, this is what's going on, and there's different things that get dismissed. One of them is could be because I'm a woman, so that's playing against me. Next, I'm Latina, another thing that's playing against me, and then I am, you know, a larger, voluptuous woman.
You too, girl.
So that also plays into that thing. So there's just so many things that play into it, and to not acknowledge that as you're rolling out a vaccine, and really addressing those concerns about people, I think it's they're doing a disservice to every individual.
And I know just because I know here in Chicago at least, I think it was local. It might have been national. When they did the first vaccine, it was the black doctor, but they had the black nurse. I was like,
I think, yeah,
this didn't do nothing for me.
yeah.
Uh, but I appreciate the efforts.
Right, like,
Yes.
because we've seen it play out so many times where they bring out these, tokenized individuals to
Right.
sort of relate to the communities that they're trying to reach. And it's like, we know the drill. You always do
Yeah.
this. Like, this isn't what we want. We want you all to talk to us and tell us why it's safe. What have you done? And also address, like, let's address the past, let's address the present, and let's move forward. But let's be transparent and honest about the mistrust within, you know, the medical community, particularly within, you know, the Black and Brown community, and, you know, in the Asian community, and all those, you know, different things where it's like, hey, let's, don't dismiss us, or don't sort of like treat us as if you put a Black, you know, doctor and nurse there, is that's going to suffice as motivation for us. Like, don't treat us as if we're ignorant or dumb or just going to follow that.
And I haven't heard anyone, going back to your point, I feel like I haven't heard anyone talk about the mistrust. They're just they're trying to insert different folks who don't look like each other into the scenario. So we're gonna put an Asian man, we're gonna put a young Black woman, but we're not gonna talk about it. We're just kind of gonna put them, you know, we're just gonna say they're getting vaccinated, but it's like we're not talking about why are you like putting this Asian man in the picture? Why are you trying to have this representation? It's just like, but oftentimes I think, under the umbrella of white supremacy, it's just like, it'll be okay. We're just gonna we just put some people who look like them. It'd be fine.
It'd be fine.
It'd be fine.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think I've seen some town halls where they say that they're gonna talk about, you know, the historical reasons why, and I think I've seen that played out. What I haven't, at least what I don't think I've seen, is not just, like I said, I think I'm gonna sound like a broken record. It's not just the history, but what are you doing? Like, what are we doing to ensure that the medical community is going to change? Like, it's, for me, it's no longer enough for you to just address it and talk about it and say like, hey, we know that it's a problem, we know that there's an issue, and it's like, I need you to say it still exists. Our medical systems are broken. They don't really take into consideration, and there's racism within our medical community systems and all these, and here's what we're going to do moving forward. Like, I haven't seen that. Like, I don't, if it's happening, I don't know where. I haven't heard from it, and I'm like, I think right now would be the perfect time to start putting that sort of language and sort of timelines and strategies, or having those conversations out there, because I think that will make me feel, at least for me, it would make me maybe not believe, but at least say like, okay, like at least they're trying to do something. Like, it looks like they're looking to change, and not just be like, hey, like, we know we we performed abortions to these, undocumented people that were at a border, these women, and did that. So we addressed it, but like, okay, so how are you going to ensure that doesn't happen again? Like, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, we know we, did this, back in the day, and then like, how are you going to make sure that that's, I'm like, okay, you're addressing it, but what are we doing? Like, how are you going to make sure that I'm going to trust you? Because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm not the kind of person that's like, well, I'm gonna go to the doctor because I trust them completely. Because like I said, I've been dismissed plenty of times, and I'm like, I have no trust within our medical systems right now, because I've gone, they've misdiagnosed me, they told me it was something that it wasn't, even though I try to advocate, be like, hey, like, this doesn't feel for what like you're telling me, like, I know it's not. And then months later, it's like, oh, I go to somewhere else, and they're like, oh, you actually have this, you've had it for a few months, like, did you not? And I'm like, they told me it was something else.
Like, bitch, I came to you, like, but you dismissed me.
I was like, yeah, I was like, so yeah, I think it goes back to that, like, with the vaccine, it's not so much, I don't think it's much about like the accessibility to the vaccine, more so than you need to build trust. I mean, even in our last video, we talked about building trust within our, within rural America from the Democratic Party. It's the same thing. Like, the medical community has some deep soul searching to do.
They have a lot of work to do.
And a lot of figuring out like what they need to change, what trainings they need to give their doctors, particularly their white doctors. And really just change the whole system. Because I mean, the system is flawed. Like the educational system that you're using for your doctors, it's flawed. Like you need to just dismantle that and rebuild and really make a culturally competent education for all doctors, nurses, medical assistants. Your whole nursing community, your whole medical community has to be trained differently, because the way that they are being taught and trained right now is under a system that was created by white males.
And I think it's hard for white people who are oftentimes just going through life, going through the motions because they're white. They have, I mean, I think we're still in this place where white people are still trying to understand, why is there such an issue with the police? Like,
No.
why don't they trust their doctors? I think it's still because for them, the doctors and the police have always been for you. And by you, I mean the white people. They've been for you. So I think it's hard for them to grapple with this when we're talking about the things that we talk about on here and just in our regular lives, for them to really understand what the problems are, because they've never experienced it. So you asking people who have never gone through this to understand, which they need to, but it's a whole over, like you said, it needs to be a whole overhaul. Like you just can't put some black people, put some brown folks up there and think it's over with. Like from medical school on up.
Yeah.
The whole, medical industry, and like we know this shit in healthcare, this needs to change. Now, I don't know how much effort is being made to curriculums in medical school across the country, but if you do know, please leave a comment. I would love to know.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I would love to know. But it's just like white people have never experienced this, like this level. They don't understand this distrust. So this last year or so has really been about them in a way too, because the shit that's going on last summer, excuse me for saying the word shit, the things that happened last summer, the things that are going on with COVID, like I said, this is not new.
Yeah.
Like, from people getting shot in the street just because you think they have a gun, but they're just walking down the street. Like I said, we can't even eat a sandwich walking down the street. We can't be on the phone in the grocery store. Like white people, that's mind blowing to them, because it's like, wow, like they're like this. Then they're found like, you've lived your whole life like this. Yes, we have. We've had to, in many ways, assimilate into cultures.
Yeah,
so we can get the promotions or get the jobs or get our kids into good schools, whatever your idea is. We've had to assimilate to their cultures to move forward. And I think it's just so mind-boggling for white people to be able to really understand it. I think especially white men. Now, this is no sympathy for them, because they got to do the work. And as I always say, please don't ask me. Ask Google first. Ask Google first.
No, you're completely right. I think you bring up such a valid point around how white people are really kind of seeing it play out a little bit more in depth, or just in a different light, because I've heard people say like COVID has become like this equalizer, and sort of like it doesn't discriminate. It's, if it attacks you, it attacks you. You get it, and maybe some people get more mild symptoms, other worse, but I think it has, I think, forced white people to grapple with the historical impact that white supremacy has had in the United States, and even to some even around the world, to kind of see that as well and grapple it and try to understand it and see it through that. And I think when you talked about just the medical education curriculums and even police, like it's not enough to sort of say we need more Black doctors, we need more Latinx doctors, we need more Asian doctors, or we need,
we do, but it's more than that. Yeah,
but it's like, even if you brought these doctors in, these diverse backgrounds, they're still being taught under a curriculum that was created for primarily white males and maybe some white women, but it's still very white centric curriculum, education, and training. I was like, and it goes back to, I think it's the same thing with the police force. Like, just because you're a black or brown police officer doesn't mean that you haven't been trained under a system that always favors whites. So you're responding and you're acting under that system. Like, it doesn't, and it's the same thing with doctors. I think any sort of system, like our educational system, it's all about how, whites are better. Like, and when you look at it, and I think that's what we're getting at, it's like there's just so much that needs to be done. But I haven't seen that conversation piece be brought into the vaccine realm and be like really addressed and say, hey, we know there's a lot of work that we need to do. It's simple, like we need to make changes and we need to do this. But in order to be able to do that, we need to get people vaccinated. How much more impactful is that than you bringing in a black doctor and telling him that, oh, it's safe to take the vaccine? Like, no, like, but in order for us to make change, like, yeah, I'm like, we can't even go out. Like, we can't even like go into meetings. Everything's by, done Zoom and everything. And it's like, in order for us to really make those changes, like, you may convince me a lot more if you told me like, hey, we need to make these changes, and it starts with, people getting vaccinated, so that we can start moving towards being able to bring those into fruition. That to me sounds more compelling than what I've recently heard in some of these town halls that I've listened in. To
be honest, I've stopped listening to some of them. This is like, some of it's the same. It's the same.
It's the same. It's the same thing. Like, yeah.
Same people on these calls.
It is. It's the same information. It's nothing different. It's all, and a lot of it is just sharing some stats, sharing some information. It's safe, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and yet nobody addresses the historical reasonings why, or nobody, again, what are you gonna do to change it? If I get the vaccine, okay, I got it. Well, what are you doing to change the future of our medical community? That's what I want to know. And anybody know the answer? If you know the answer, please.
It's comment. Like, even people of color, we're operating in these systems too, and it's very frustrating. And it's just so much. So I'm thinking, like, even just with issues of us losing our African American men and women and Latinx individuals as well, like, they haven't all been shot or killed by white people. What, like, there been some people of color that's been involved in some of this shit too. So, but then again, they're, like you said, they're operating in the system. They're coming into these systems and they're operating and feeding right into these same systems. And they are here killing their own people.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Misdiagnosing their own people because they're trained to see only this in the medical community. Educationally, they're trained to kind of do that. Is like it's just, you and I are a product of a educational system that favors white norms and white culture and all these things, where it's just like, we catch ourselves, you and I catch ourselves sometimes being like, white supremacy, because our thought process is so, and we call each other out, or we sort of say like, let's unpack that because that doesn't seem right. Like, where did that come from? And and it's exhausting when you continually find things and you're like, dang, I never realized that thought that I've had for my whole entire life really came because I was just conditioned by a culture, norms, systems that always say white is better, white is good. And it's tiring, y'all. It is tiring.
It is very tiring. Shit, I'm tired again. Lord. I'm just tiring. Oh my goodness. And I think this is a transition into the storm.
Yes, I think you're right.
A lot of these issues too.
are some of the things we probably saw play out.
Girl,
Um,
let me just start with like what Ted Cruz, honey. How you gonna be?
I remember I woke up and I was going about my day, and I saw something and I'm like, oh, this is made up. They made this up. There's no
I was
way.
there too. I was.
I was like, there is no way a senator would do this. Like, they're not, I'm like, not dumb enough to be up and leaving while their state is going through a crisis. I was like, so I actually dismissed it. I was like, there's no way. And then I remember I came back and I'm like, oh no, he really left. He really got on a plane and went, and then I got pissed. I'm like, why are you going to my motherland,
Right. To Cancun.
Cancun?
Spreading your
And like,
American germs.
yes, I'm like, why are you taking your germs to somewhere you shouldn't be? Like, and then I got mad because I was like, why are you? And then I was like, why are you leaving your state? People who don't have the ability or the privilege to be able to get on a plane and go somewhere warm and say, I'll come back when this is done. And you really thought that was a good look for you.
Like,
Like,
and then his wife too, right? She was basically trying to get other people to come too.
yeah,
Like, was like, why don't you come with us? We're going on vacation.
I mean, whoever in that friend group said, New York Times, here's the text that we got from the Cruz family. Bless y'all for doing that.
I know. I haven't even seen the text. Oh my God. Get out of here. This is
Yep.
insane. I just heard about it. Like, she's trying to get other friends or family to come with them. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? If anything, the showing of privilege here, and
Yep.
they're not even going to acknowledge that. But the showing of privilege here is appalling. As we say, the caucasity of the situation, because Ted Cruz is not one of you. He's a different.
Oh no, he's denounced all that.
He's
Like,
not.
we don't. He ain't one of us.
He's not one of y'all. So the caucasity of this issue, I was just tripping. I was like, his wife trying to get other people to come along. What?
Yes.
God. Oh my God. But I mean, Texas, bless their heart. I have an uncle who lives there. I mean, he's fine. His family's fine. But I mean, it is really like your state is in a state of emergency. Biden has already declared it a state of emergency down there. And you just want to go. I mean, we all want to get away. Don't you think people want to get away too? We want to escape.
That's what I'm saying.
We want to get away. And there are plenty of people. Do you think, like, the other senators in some of these other states, when shit goes down, they have money? They could fly wherever they want to go to. Do you see them going and flying off to some vacation like when they need to be home, helping their state, the people who voted you in?
Oh my God.
We all want a vacation sometimes.
I'm laughing because it just seems so ridiculous. Like, it just seems like it was one of those things where you're like,
it's like fake news.
I'm like, again, like, I literally was like, this is not real. Like, I can't take this. I was like, this must be doctored. Like, somebody, maybe it's like a lookalike. But when it came out, I was like, this only happens in like movies or something. Like, like, it was just so out of my realm to even think that anybody in that sort of like elected position would be like, but then I remembered, like, you know what? Trump always went golfing. So why did I think that one of his supporters would do anything different? And then it brought me back to earth.
That's why, you know what? There we go. The comment your father said, which I won't say on air, but the comment your father said is he was right. But the other group is still cooler. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yes.
The other group's still cooler. But you're right. He is a supporter of Trump. I think still.
Oh yeah, he is.
He's still. That's what. So you're right. He's Trump out here playing golf and going to Mar-a-Lago, whatever the place is. You're right. It is. It's very befitting. And I hope he doesn't get reelected. But because I hate to talk about Texas, I'm sorry, Texas, but all y'all are not bright down there. So y'all gonna vote him back in. And I can say this because I'm a fellow Southerner.
it's a few years before he's up for re-election.
Oh yeah, it's a few years. But
So I mean,
folks remember. People remember.
let's hope they remember.
I hope that's what I'm saying. Sometimes the people down there in Texas not too bright, because I know people in Mississippi not too bright either. I'm just saying, okay, you know.
I ain't gonna say nothing because I'm a northerner and I'm just gonna stay out of that.
Well, I'm a southerner through and through. I'm a southerner forever, and so I think they ain't too bright down there. So you're right. I hope they remember.
But
You
I
know,
hope they remember. I
really.
really do. Because I mean, so I love me my TikTok. TikTok
Okay.
is my thing. I'm always on there. So I remember like the last, when it all went down and I started seeing pictures. And at first I was like, it's a little bit of snow, y'all. Like, you'll be okay. Like, and then when I started seeing like, oh, it's not just a little bit of snow, it's like temperatures going,
Plummeting, like
plummeting for days. And
yeah.
I'm like, this is not just like a 1 day or maybe a 2 day thing. Like this was like, and then I'm like, and then I started seeing like people's pipes bursting and like their house are flooding and they're just, you're not prepared because this isn't supposed to happen in your state.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, like it is definitely a lot more serious than, I first believed it was. And then I started seeing sort of like the videos of people saying like, the wealthy parts of my city still have power, but if you look at some of the lower income parts of the city, they don't have power. Like they're doing like rolling blackouts, and then they're like, it's not really rolling blackouts. It's just hours and hours of like no power. And I'm like, imagine ComEd trying to do that right here. Like, Lord, no. I'm like, it's too cold for that. Like, you can't be doing it. Like, and then when I started kind of reading, I'm like, I'm not an expert Texas and y'all's power grid and all that stuff. I'm just going based off what I read and heard through my TikTok research and seeing, and then like looking at articles, but just like
research.
Didn't even realize like that it's privatized. Like it's privatized.
During the break, I saw that. I'm sorry, it is. There's some company. I can't remember the name, but it is.
Yeah, it's privatized, and then like something about like they didn't want to be part of like some federal regulation, so that's why they did it, and they couldn't tap into other power sources in like in the area that they could have if they hadn't like said we don't want to be regulated by the federal government. I was like, oh, so these are policies that the government decided for their people.
You chose to have your people freeze.
Yeah, and I was like, and y'all decided this, and y'all trying to blame it on your decisions, but you're trying to say that, like, oh, it's these wind turbines that are freezing over because you chose not to make them all weather turbines, and that's why they froze. But then that's not even the majority of where your power comes, like. And I'm just like sitting, like I'm watching and reading these, watching these videos, reading these articles, and I'm just like I know it's not all the people's fault. It's not the people of Texas. It's not all your fault. I won't blame y'all. But some of y'all voted in some people, and they made these decisions. But then, you and I always go back and we have a deeper conversation about things. And then I always think like, well, capitalism, white supremacy, like all those things came into play. People wanted more money. People wanted control, and it's like, again, you gotta go back and do an overhaul of these systems, and you gotta vote out people. And it's unfortunate that it took such a terrible natural disaster
because people lost their lives.
And over something that was preventable. Like when I think about like a hurricane and I think about tornadoes, there's only so much you can do, right? Like there's so much you can do to prepare for that. But for something like this, I'm like, this was preventable. You could have prepared a little better. I'm like, people should not have lost power. Like I just cannot.
Not at the capacity that they did, where it was,
yeah,
it is a mess. It is just a mess. I mean, has Cruz come back? I'm assuming he's come back. I don't know.
He came back the same day.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I was like, did he? Because I was like,
He flew back to say when he realized all of the backlash, he flew back. And then he blamed his daughter or something.
I heard about he blamed his daughter. I was like, you need to blame your wife. Okay.
Because he blamed his daughter first because the texts hadn't been come out yet. So he thought he could like get away with
He
like
lied. He lied too.
He lied, and then I think he kind of owned up to it, or he said something, and then he went along. It's like, I was just trying, basically, like I was just trying to keep my family safe. Now, and then in my head, I was like, you could have sent your family to Cancun. You didn't have to go.
You don't have to go.
You could have stayed behind and stood with your people who you represent and try to help them out. Instead, you have two other individuals, one of them who was not voted, who lost to you, Beto O'Rourke, doing something for a state that didn't want him, that didn't vote him in. And then you have AOC coming in, raising funds for a state that she knows does not like her.
Does not like her. Does not. That's what I'm saying. And so we have senators kind of from other states. We got people who have lost against you. I hear helping. He's like, oh, I wanted my family safe. That's cool. Everybody wants their family safe. Yeah. You, like you said, you could have sent your family over there, but you need to stay behind. If you didn't want to be a politician, then you shouldn't have ran. Okay. Yeah. So this was the life you chose for yourself. Nobody told you to be a politician. So you made that choice to run. You got elected. So your ass need to stay here and fight with your state. Like, that's why I say, I hope the Texans remember. I'm going to have to tell my uncle, even though my uncle is a Democrat. But I just want him to tell his friends down there too, who are Republicans, because like you said, Texas is a lot of capitalism and a lot of white supremacy. So it
was like one of those moments where I was like, man, this was preventable. Like, there was just so many wrong things, politically and like with policies and like regulations, that I was just like,
do we want to talk about that mayor, the one you talked about? what was he over? Colorado City or something?
Colorado City, I think it's called. I think I have like no words for someone.
I couldn't believe you told me all the stuff he said until I Googled and read it myself.
Yeah.
And then tried to retract the statement. So people who are like, what the hell are they talking about? So the mayor of Colorado City, Texas. So I hope that's the right state. I mean, the right little town. Their mayor there, basically, I don't know if he tweeted or Facebooked, if this was an email. I don't exactly know where he sent this.
I think it might have been like a Facebook.
Facebook, okay.
If I remember correctly.
Long little horrible statement he made around like, if you don't have water, you need to get out of your house and go find it. If your family's freezing, you need to find a way that they have warmth. I'm tired of lazy people misusing the government. It is not my responsibility to take care of you and your family. You need to take care and fend for your family yourself. I think that's essentially what he's saying. I mean, it's a lot.
In a nutshell.
It's in like a nutshell, to paraphrase. And then he tried to retract the statement and saying like, oh, well, I'm not talking about elderly individuals or people who cannot fend for themselves. You shouldn't even have said what you said. Then you wouldn't even have to worry about it.
Because he said it was taken out of context. And I was like,
no, it wasn't.
You wrote it. What other context are you talking about? You wrote it yourself.
You wrote it. What you expect people to do? You over here telling people to go look for water and warmth and get electricity when it's a state emergency and people being told to stay home. And there's a pandemic still. And we know Texas is not following the laws. Okay? That's a part of the problem. So it's just like,
it goes back to the privilege of it all. Like the fact that he felt comfortable enough to post that, or to just say, like, speaks to the level of privilege that man felt that he could just spew it out there and there wouldn't be any ramifications. Goes back to what we talked about that other in our last video, people storming the Capitol thinking like their privilege is gonna protect them, and it's not. It's like, I think hopefully we're coming into a time and place where, you just can't say something because historically nothing has ever happened to you. And it's like there's ramifications to what you do, and if you're not using your privilege to really uplift people and really make changes that are going to be good for the betterment of our society, then we don't want to hear from you. And clearly the people spoke up, and he resigned. He had to resign.
Yes, that's the thing. That's the great matter here.
Yes.
Yes.
I was like, I would have been so disappointed if he stayed in power, because I'm like, no.
This
like,
Texas. That's why I said I don't know, but I am happy that he resigned. Or he'll. I mean, like, I hate to hear people get fired. I think it's fucked up. You just never know. But if he would have got fired, I think I would have been okay with that too. Be like, you need to step down.
Yeah.
So whether he resigned or forced out, it don't matter. Like, he should have been. I also think his wife lost his job too. Lost her job.
Oh, I didn't read
know. I don't know, but I believe that's what I might have read.
It's just very interesting is not the right word. It's just I'll go back. Yeah.
Tenacity.
Yes, that's it. Because I mean, I think we when we chatted the other day around like this whole thing in Texas, and I think I told you, like, you could probably just trace it right back to white supremacy, and really just, and now talking through it, it's like it really is. It's these white males really thinking that they have the ability, or they have this privilege to just do as they please, say as they please, and think that there's no ramifications, that they opted to go to this like capitalistic policy when it came to this power grid, and like this thing of like just more money for the few and let's screw over the majority. And I've seen TikTok videos of people showing their bills, and it's like in the thousands of dollars. And I'm like, try someone tell me I got paid $1,000 during a state of emergency. I'm like, that to me, it doesn't even compute in my head.
And I'm like, what the hell are they paying for? They haven't had power. So what are you talking about?
Again, it goes back to, like, I don't know the ins and outs of this whole thing, but y'all, if y'all know, put some articles in the comment section that would be helpful for us to learn more about what is going on, or if somebody out there has explained this somewhere, send us the link to the video if it's on YouTube. Because honestly, like, when I just see thousands of dollars that you owe, and then they're saying like, well, one company is allowing them to split it up in like 5 payments, but that comes out to $1,000 a month. I'm like, y'all should be forgiving all this. Like, nobody should be paying any electricity bill for what just happened, because it was not the people's fault.
Again, this is the stuff. This is why America can't talk about other countries. You can't talk about other countries and dictators and how policies are set up over there, because America's failing its people. It's been failing people. But it's a shame. You have people out here in the cold down there. There's a pandemic going on, and you have the nerve to ask people to pay thousands of dollars. I don't even care if they can afford it or not. It's so insincere.
Yeah.
Like, where's your heart? I mean, like, this is an unprecedented event that happened down there. People are trying to figure out what to do, and you are charging these people thousands of dollars. Like, I've been seeing some of the articles come up on my phone too, just about one man was charged $7,000, and I'm like I said, what is he paying for at this point? They haven't had power, So what the hell is these? I feel like where's these
Yeah.
amounts of money coming from?
And that's again, like, if there's somewhere that I can read that explains how this whole
Yeah,
electricity power grid is working out in Texas, and why there's thousands of dollars being owed by people, like, y'all let me know. Like, or is it, I mean, maybe they just are able to raise the prices at any given point and there's nothing to regulate that. Because if that's the case, can you imagine if you did have power
that's
and
part.
and you were just using because you're trying to stay warm, and it's like, and you're just paying and they, you didn't even see that they price gouged it up to whatever. It's like, it's crazy. I'm hoping that there's a way for these people to be able to say that this was illegal and that they should not be held accountable for these costs, because it is a natural disaster. State of emergency was declared.
And this is what Ted Cruz need to be looking into. Why are the people in his state being charged this much money? I mean, one of many things he needs to look into, but this is a big one. This is of the moment. Why are people in his state being charged for thousands of dollars?
And what are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah, like what is it? And the Republicans gonna say what they're gonna say, and they're gonna make it seem like, well, this is not on us. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing as a senator. Then what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing then? Say what you listen. We don't know. We don't know.
Because he said, I think, and I may be wrong, but I think I read that he said that he had no idea if he stayed, how he could help the people of Texas.
Figure it out.
I was like,
What?
you see what AOC did? She raised
Right.
$3 million for a state that doesn't like her. I'm like, you could have done that.
You
You
could
could
have
have been
done
raising.
that. You could work with local stores there to put together food for people if they need it. Like you could work, getting people shelter if they need it. You can like people may be cold, they don't have electricity, they might need blankets. There are ways you can come out, like get your hands dirty. I'm sure they're dirty in other ways that are probably legal. Yes, I said it. But just come down, get your hand dirty. Like,
You could have just gone volunteered at a food pantry somewhere.
yeah, do something. That's your state.
Yeah, like,
Do something. Say you don't know what to do. Then what the fuck are you in power for? Like, what are you here for if you can't help your state or your people when they need you? Like, what? Especially people who voted for him. Like, to me, that is so crazy. He's saying that he don't know what he can do.
yeah, he said he didn't really know what he would be able to do if he like stayed behind or something like that. I was like, there's plenty of things.
There's plenty of things. Hell, even if he legitimately did not, you have a team of people who work in your office. Some smart ass people up in there. They call your staff. Let's come up with something. Let's brainstorm. What can we do? How can we help people? Like, it's not rocket science at this point. These people need the basic necessities. That's what they need right now. The basic necessities, which is, of course, proven here in America. Americans, though, our government doesn't believe in basic necessities for people. I was looking at you like you sipping tea. Like, oh, she said it. I did. Americans don't.
I mean, you ain't wrong. You are not wrong.
Don't believe in basic necessities.
No, I mean, how much of a struggle it is to even talk about universal health care. It is.
Like, hell, even just like improving on education. Why is it so difficult to get things agreed on around education?
Yeah.
Why is it like food? You and I are always talking about like the lack of food nutrition. Why is this still such a big issue? Now, don't get me wrong. I know there are certain niches and things that are happening that we're not privy to, but like you should not have a child or a family of people.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even get me started on homeless people. I don't want to go there, but it should not food should not be an issue. It should not be an issue.
Housing, healthcare.
should not be issues.
I
That's
mean,
basic stuff. That's basic stuff. You need food and water to stay alive. You need shelter to protect you. Like, you need healthcare to stay alive. So, I mean, what
like,
is this? Girl, we could be on this for 3 more hours. You know.
I think this is where we need to take a pause and an end to this conversation, because if not, we're, like Martina said, we could go on for 3 hours.
Oh man.
And we will be sharing more on all of these things that we talked about.
Absolutely.
We definitely will be doing more. We just don't want to make you a 3-hour long video,
Right.
and have you here. So we appreciate y'all staying with us and watching. If there's anything that you agree, disagree with, please comment, let us know. Because we definitely want to learn from others and hear others' opinions and perspectives on things. But just a little preview, you've heard us say a lot around like basic necessities, you know, basic rights. You heard us say white supremacy, white privilege. We are definitely going to be digging into those things in our upcoming videos. So we hope you join us and get and watch those and learn with us, because it's going to be a learning experience for Martina and I as we kind of explore that and not only give our perspective, but also, you know, to dig in a little bit, do a little bit of research in some of those things. But we definitely want to dig into white supremacy and it being the root cause of a lot of the things that we see in our country and maybe even in the world. And we'll explore it also as a public health issue and see that. So we look forward to seeing you in our next video. We thank you for sticking with us and showing your support. And we hope you have a good day, evening, whenever you're watching this, and we will see you next time.
Bye, y'all.